Hello, this is Shaheen Chakra again, and today we're going to be talking about the beauty and the magnificence of absolute value. And you're like, what is absolute value? Well, it's something that's absolutely amazing. And the idea about absolute value is that we're talking about distance from zero. So the idea of absolute value is this: if I live in a house, let's pretend I live in a house now, okay? And so if I live in a house and I decide to go ahead and leave my house and go for a walk, and let's say I want to graph where I'm walking. Let's just say I did that, because that's what I do. I'm a mathematician. So I go ahead and I graph out my sidewalk, because I graph those lines. You know, the step on a crack and break your mama's back, and step on a line, your papa's spot. Anyway, so the idea is that if I were to go out of my house and I'd go to the left, or if I'd go to the right, the idea is that I can count the number of steps that I'm taking. And let's say I go ahead and I leave my house and I go a couple steps to the, and we would be saying your left here. So I'm going to the left, and let's say I go all the way over here, and this is where I stop at -3, okay, on my graphed sidewalk. And I could say that the absolute value of -3, or the distance from zero, or the distance from my front door, is not -3 steps, but the idea that I've actually gone 3 steps. Because when we talk about distances, we're not talking about negative distances. We don't have negative distances. Like if I'm walking somewhere, I can't say I've gone -3 feet or -3 miles. All right. What I am doing is I've traveled 3 feet. Maybe it's graphed on a number line to the left, but the idea is that it's still a positive, because this is a distance traveled. So absolute value is distance from zero. Absolute value is distance from zero. And because we're talking about distances from zero, we can't have a negative absolute value. It doesn't exist. Okay? So the idea is that when I have -3, the absolute value of -3, it's a +3. If I said the absolute value of -9, I'm saying that's 9 away from zero. So it's distance from zero, okay? So, in continuing with this basic idea of absolute value, let's say that I didn't want to tell you how far that I walked in what direction. Let's say I didn't want to tell you what direction I walked, okay? Because I like my privacy. And let's say that, so you don't know how you don't know what direction I walked, but I did say that I went ahead and I walked for, let's say 12 steps, because that's about what I can handle before I start getting winded, okay? Now, I could have either walked to the left 12 steps or to the right 12 steps, okay? So the two values of x that exist are 12 and -12. Or I guess I should have started with the lower number first, which would be -12. But the idea is that when I have the absolute value of x, there are two possible values of x, 12 or -12. All right? Now, kind of fast forwarding this concept a little bit, I can actually start to apply more stuff into my absolute value. For example, let's say I went ahead and said x plus 3 was going to equal, let's say we went with 15. Now the idea is that if I've gone, if I have x plus 3 and it's equal to 15, then what is the value of x? In order to solve for the value of x, I need to write this two ways. In the same way that if I said x equals 15 here, the possible value of 15, the possible value of x would be 15 or -15. These are my two possible values of x. In this case, x plus 3 is equal to 15, or x plus 3 is equal to a -15, okay? Do you see how we, following the same pattern, this bad boy could be 15, and the value of x could be 15 or -15, because it's distance from zero. So in this case, when I have x plus 3, the distance from zero, whatever this is equivalent to 15, so it could be like a -15 or a +15. All right, so for me to solve for x, I go ahead and isolate my variable. In this case, I subtract 3, cancels out, and I get x is equal to 12. Now in this case over here, I subtract 3, and I get x is equal to -18. And so these are the two values of x. So I'd write x is equal to -18 or 12. And these are my two values. That's supposed to be a 12. Okay, cool. So continuing this further, I can have I can even have numbers on the outside of my absolute value, which might confuse a bit, but we'll see. And I love these beautiful pens that I have that I can just pull out. So let's say I had, I don't know, let's go 2 times the absolute value of x plus 6 minus 3 is equal to, let's go 9 maybe? Let's go 9, okay? So the idea here is that first of all, I can't say equals positive 9 and negative 9 yet. I can't go there. The idea is that I have to go ahead and isolate the absolute value first. So absolute value needs to be by itself first. In the same way that you are comfortable with isolating variables, I have to isolate my absolute value. So step 1, we would go ahead and we'd add 3 to both sides. This cancels out. I now am rewriting my problem, always rewrite your problem, as 2 times the value of x plus 6 is equal to 9 plus 3 is 12. I then go ahead and to isolate my absolute value, I can either divide by 2 or multiply by 1/2, multiply by that reciprocal. These cancel out, multiply by the reciprocal, which gives me the absolute value of x plus 6 is equal to, and we say 6. Okay? With this concept now, I have now broken it down to just the absolute value. So now I can say x plus 6 equals 6, and x plus 6 equals negative 6. And then I go ahead and I isolate further. I subtract 6 from both sides, and I end up with x is equal to 0. Or I can subtract 6, and I get x is equal to negative 12. And these are my 2 values again. So x will be equal to negative 12 or 0 in these cases. All right? One final example. And you're all like, yeah, no, not a final example. We want it forever. And I'm like, yeah, but no. So if I had a case in which I'm like at negative 3 times the absolute value of x minus 4 minus 1 is equal to 11. So I would go ahead and begin by adding 1 to both sides. And I'm at negative 3 times the absolute value of x minus 4. Remember that we like to rewrite our problems. I'm at 12, again somehow. Divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3, or I could have multiplied by the reciprocal. And now I'm at absolute value of x minus 4 is equal to negative 4. Now the problem here is, I think I already stated this, is that you can't have a negative absolute value. I can't have a negative distance from 0. If I'm saying what is the distance from me to, I don't know, if I'm saying what's the distance from me to the moon, I can't have a negative absolute value. It's not like I go inside the moon or something like that. That's a weird example. I'm really sorry. I was kind of like shooting from the hip, which I probably shouldn't do. But the idea is that you can't have a negative absolute value. You can't have a negative distance from 0. It don't work. It doesn't exist. Okay? So this would be what I would call a no solution. This is a no solution because it just doesn't exist. Alright? Well, these are some basics on solving for absolute value. Absolute value. So the next video is going to be on absolute value inequalities, where we have the marriage of inequalities and absolute value, and you put them together, and then it's going to be awesome. And you are going to be all the closer to being a mathematical wizard. And so, yeah, have a great day, and peace.